I want to invite now all the panel members to the front and take a seat. And before we, I'm sure there are a lot of questions out of the room for the different panel members. If you have a question, my colleague Patrice here has the microphone, and then just raise your hand and then she can approach you. I will ask the first question. We heard some great examples again, also quite diverse. There's very many different ways to protect culture in your destination. It can be through food, through dugout canoes, restoring a church, making different roads which take people to different parts of the city. So my biggest question, or a lot of what I found is also with the top 100 stories, is that destinations often struggle with the start. Yesterday I heard somebody say you have to really find your local heroes. So the persons in your local community who are already doing it and are really enthusiastic about what they do. That can be, for example, the weavers in Miyazu who are really enthusiastic what they do, show their culture, are authentic, and can really enthusiast other people about the destination and appreciate it. And that way the culture can be protected. So to start with you, Emma, for Inverness and in Scotland, you have the headset. How did you start? Because the shortbread competition, you said it was, well, not a spur of the moment, but somebody came up with it. But how did you start with it? How did you find out, well, this is the way to promote Inverness next to Loch Ness?
Okay, sorry, just checking this works. No, it's a good question, because like I said, when I did my talk, it was very, very difficult to move away from the Loch Ness, because you're talking about local heroes, and we have some very good little local heroes in our area. So there's a guy that gave up his job and moved up from the south when he was like 18 and lives right on the loch in Loch Ness, called Steve. You need to check him out. And he's dedicated his life to trying to find this monster. Anyway, that wasn't really a question. He's literally still there and makes figurines and will happily chat to anybody. It's great. So the shortbread, trying to move away from the monster, was really just trying to find something that encompassed everybody, like literally everybody in the community. So it really was just what can we do to include everybody? Everybody's got to eat. Everybody does hopefully like food. It's the best thing ever. So it was just getting pen to paper and saying what can we? How does everybody have a relationship with something? And shortbread was the one that was picked.
And then sort of follow-up question: how do you engage them? What's the next step?
Well, hand out free shortbread for start off. And I guess trying to inspire people to come and tell us their stories. So the shortbread that hopefully some of you ate and enjoyed, that was a tradition that family used forever, and they're now serving it in the restaurants. So it's trying to draw people to come and tell us about their stories, and we got loads of them. We've only done it for 1 year, but we're going to continue getting those stories and inspiring people to come and taste the different shortbread.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Mitja, how did that go for Ljubljana? You said we had many different artisans, but there are different ways to promote Ljubljana and or to protect the cultural heritage. How did you came to these artisans and identify them and then engage with them, that they would join you in this story?
I would go a little bit the other way. I think that everybody sitting in the room has the same question at the destination, that is the citizens or the residents of the city. So we do focus on the residents, and that is the story that come out from that story, I would say. Because all those artisans are actually the residents of Ljubljana, they live there. And then we would like to make the balance between visitors of the city and the residents of the city and the cultural heritage of the city. So that was the starting point where we start, actually. And residents don't know about the artisans, which is funny, but that's how it is. So by picking them up and promoting them, we somehow make the bridge, as I said already, between citizens, residents, and artisans.
Okay, so you really start with the residents, and
Yeah.
how did you do that? Did you do it by through an evaluation or via the community, that people within the community knew how to find that information?
Mm-hmm. We do regular researches on the market regarding how residents of the city are satisfied with the tourism. And this is how we do also the focus groups with residents. And there pops up the ideas. So if you listen to people in your city, then you get the answers. So there were some ideas from this field, and the other was, like I already said, in the strategy, we put out that the cultural tourism has to be a part of the tourism, culture, sorry. So that's the way that we started to think, not only via visitors coming to Ljubljana and do 5 photos of the city center, but also to have a cultural footprint. And this is where the craftsmen are joining the story.
Okay, thank you very much. Jesse, for Miyazu, you said there were 2 women still doing this tradition, and how did you identify them and came to them, and that you convinced Miyazu, well, this is the way to put Miyazu in the spotlight and to protect this particular cultural heritage?
Is it on? On? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, in terms of Miyazu, and this is kind of indicative of Japan, a lot of artisans and people that are engaged in heritage arts, and I was wondering if the same might be for Slovenia as well, because it seems like there's a lot of overlap. But that a lot of the people that are engaged in these arts and practices don't actually see the value that we can see from the outside. And so, you know, I can look at artisans and people engaged in these kind of heritage arts and kind of visualize the story that they don't necessarily see. So actually, one of the hurdles we had was actually, I don't want to say making, but helping these women understand how amazing what they were doing actually is, because the art of wisteria weaving, and the same can be said of a lot of traditional arts in Japan, like paper making, they kind of fit into the natural life cycle. So, you know, it's mainly agriculture. They're growing rice, they're growing vegetables, they get a lot of snow in the winter. And so what they're doing with these arts, like paper making or wisteria weaving, is they kind of just fitting into downtime. And they're using, so for example, you know, you use a stove in the winter and you have ash left over. Well, that ash is actually reutilized to boil the wisteria fibers in lye to actually make them softer and more pliant. And paper making utilizes this as well. And then the weaving process and the making the thread actually happens in the winter when they're snowed in and they can't go anywhere anyway. So they've got ample time. And so the challenge, the first challenge was helping these people understand how valuable what they have is. And obviously the government had recognized it as a tangible cultural property, and the technique as intangible. But helping to promote and revitalize, and you know, their main goal was just to not have this die out. So, you know, there's your baseline. And if we can promote it and share it to other people, and there's a chance that it continues, you know, the women doing it in Miyazu, they don't care if it's just them. You know, if you have people in Canada continuing it, they're just as happy. They just want to see the art continue. From our perspective, it's helping create that story. And, you know, I could see that with the umbrella, you know, repair shop and the umbrella workshop, I guess you would call it, as well. Like, it can be very interesting to a different perspective if you're telling the right story and you're focusing on the right things. But maybe the person who's working in the umbrella shop, she doesn't see it herself. And so you're actually kind of bridging a gap.
So yeah, that's really typical. If I sort of describe it shortly, that's a role for DMO, for example, to identify the stories that people might not see themselves and really assist them with bringing it out of to the other people and explaining it and storytelling in that regards. Okay, thank you very much.
I would add something at the wisteria that you said. In Albania, we still use it by producing our clothes, traditional ones. So I don't know the material that is this right now, but we use like cotton or something else. I don't really know very well those, but we have the wisteria there still that they are working on it. But the difficulty that I see on this kind of art is that, as I see in Albania, not in Japan, the people are not working anymore on that because they feel like, oh, I am working for, I need some market to sell it or somebody to buy it, but it's very difficult to buy it. We have tried to buy some and we take them in the ferry. We try to get by our money to send them there because we wish that she sells something or do something for profit, because you do it for passion, but in the end you need something to take back, to continue it. That's why I'm saying about the wisteria there. Is it working like they have shops to sell it, they export it, what they do with the products? A little bag or they do it?
They're mainly selling it. They're mainly selling it locally. You can actually buy it at their private galleries. There are some weaving companies in the area that have a silk heritage background, and they're kind of doing fusion, so innovating. So maybe doing fusion between wisteria and silk. Obviously in Japan, kimono culture used to be very, very big, but people aren't wearing kimono as much anymore. And so the entire weaving industry in our area is faced with the same problems of trying to innovate. And so what they're doing is moving towards maybe modern fashion, interior design. But one thing that I can say about the artisans and kind of our role as a DMO is that if we are helping to promote it, and let's say, I'm not sure what the overall population of Albania is, but Japan's sitting about 126 million. And so if you just take the domestic market for Japan, 4 million. All Albania.
4 million live outside Albania.
4 million live outside, and in and out. Okay, well let's instead of 126, let's take 4 million. If you just had like 0.01% of that 4 million, you have quite a lot of people interested in wisteria weaving. And even within that percent, if you just find like just a few people that are impassioned enough to just do it because they love it and they just got hooked on it and interested in it, then you have a culture that can continue to survive. I mean, we were down to literally 2 people in the entire nation doing this, and now, hundreds of people have been trained. And so I just kind of think that like the world's population is enormous. And so there's a chance that someone's going to want to do one of these things. There's going to be someone who wants to make a dugout canoe, and they might dedicate, decades to learning that art.
Yeah, so like you're saying, local market is important because that's the origin and they sort of appreciate the product. But next to that, basically the whole world is your playground, and especially right now with all the digital possibilities, this actually maybe connecting those artisans with people who can market it, but yeah, obviously it must not be then that it becomes, how you call it, I wouldn't say stage, but that it becomes mass produced, because it cannot be mass produced. So there will be a challenge. But to go onwards, maybe a little bit, for Estonia, how did you find out, like, well, we have a national park. You're the first national park of, I think it was of the Soviet Union. And, well, there's a great story behind it. So how do you identify, well, these are the local heroes. We saw it at the Harvest Festival on Saturday. But then how do you identify the story? Like, how are you going to tell what they have to tell? Because they are very proud. They have a lot to tell, and they want to show the national park and the heritage. So how do you identify that?
Yeah, this is not on. It is on. Okay, sorry. So this is actually, as I mentioned, that being an old national park, much work has been done in this field, not nature, but also cultural heritage. So we were also lucky that from the very beginning, cultural heritage was also stated that it is protected and preserved in Lahemaa. So that part has been, I think this is one of the reasons we yesterday discussed it with Anna Pollock as well. How come we have so many choirs and national folk dances in Estonia still left? For example, in England, she mentioned it's difficult to find them. And even young people, it is popular to be a folk dancer in Estonia among young people. I don't know if it's a surprise for you. And I think this was firstly in our case that these national park people have stated from the very beginning and have kept this as our value. And this is how we have grown up with, that we are proud of this. But I think this also has to do with our history that our friends don't want to mention so much, that this was part of our national identity during the Soviet time, that it was burning somewhere inside us. So this is a good ground for this. But now the role of the DMO is just to take it out to the world. So I think the heroes are there. They know their value, but we then have to present it.
Okay, thank you very much. And then, of course, the dugout canoes, it's a very tangible and very visible and very explainable product and a way to preserve culture, but also to show people the outdoors and to really immerse people in the environment. But then, indeed, how do you use it as a way to show the national park and to get across your story and your vision of this is what I want to tell about my cultural heritage and environmental heritage?
Yeah, the boat was used a lot before the Second World War, because then it was a lively communities of these villages who need it. But of course, after Second World War, with all the urbanization, but also deportation, people was sent to Siberia, all these sad things, these villages kind of disappeared. So today there is very few people who live there. And the other thing is like just better boats, or better, but cheaper, and plastic, aluminium, and other materials. So it's not that easy to make this boat. But as some miracle, these two men was still building it in 60s, 70s, 80s, and now in 90s it was kind of renaissance. So it was not me who first wanted to build this boat, but there are like other young people coming to these masters, and today we are 5 who can kind of teach to others how to do it. So, but 30 years ago, like Soomaa was established as a national park, and it is like a younger sister of Lahemaa National Park. So one of the 6 national parks, and of course the national park, it means interesting something for the visitors. So this is also where I started my guiding, and I bought glass fiber canoes. But of course these glass fiber canoe trips are also very immersive in the nature, going on by the rivers. This is for everyone. Going in a dugout, but it's like a more exclusive, and it's maybe more tricky to keep a balance in this boat. So still it is like a small thing in terms of volume, but it is a very great thing for the image of the park, the story of the park, and kind of symbol of this area. Especially what I already said, connection with this flooding, and we just, what was the question?
No. I think you explained already pretty
Yeah,
good.
thank
Like,
you.
how do you come to use a dugout canoe or wooden dugout canoes to tell the story of your destination? And like you said, well, as I understand it, there was already a tendency and an interest, which you see around the world right now, that people are looking more for natural fibers, not mass-produced, unique experiences, authenticity, slow food.
Something to add is just this the key for, of course, making it well known or better known. It is, I mean, this is just the beginning of it, but it came, of course, when it was listed to the UNESCO. So UNESCO, it is like Coca-Cola, yeah, everybody knows it. And if you are a visitor with an interest of heritage and maybe going more deep to the things to see and do, then you look for these UNESCO signed things.
Yeah.
Well known.
Just a question.
Yeah, sure.
What is the population there in Lahuna? Lahema.
3,100 people,
And you said that you had many NGOs, isn't it?
hundreds.
100.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 33,000, the population of Belgium. We don't have any.
Come to Lahemaa.
That's we do. Sorry, but we do all by ourselves. So, and we need one, of course. We try to open one, but it's very difficult. I don't know how it works there, but your taxes things. I tried to open by myself one, but so I cannot handle it. So that's why. I didn't
Actually,
take
when
the
you
risk.
are a community NGO, we don't have to pay taxes. It's when you don't have that much
I have
money.
to get that low.
Yeah.
So-
That's why I was impressed when you said that we have many NGOs. I said, wait, how is the population there? So 100 and you have small population. We don't have any.
Well, that's indeed where do you start? And as I understand it correctly, like you are the front runner in Albania. You're the first ones finding out how do we set up sustainable tourism? What do we use as our, well, not image, but our good practice story? And other destinations in Albania looking at you like, how is Belgium doing it? And maybe we do it that way as well. So yeah, these are very valid questions. And also why conferences like these are important to share that knowledge and to learn from each other. That it don't stays confined within borders. I want to go to questions in the room. Does anybody have a question? Yes.
Emma, I think I have, this question is more for you. You were talking about make cultural events or tradition, transfer it to the tourism attraction, right? So where is the range, where the community has a feeling if they want to make it touristical? Because we know a lot of local community events who became a huge touristic attractions and now huge industry behind it. And it's kind of like then you are losing this kind of tradition, And does this community has a feeling or they are talking about or thinking about how much deep they want to go in this direction? Thank you.
I think I'm on. Thank you for your question. I understand that, and I think it's difficult because I think in most destinations it can feel sometimes like a tourist or visitor and then the communities. So we're very much about the tourism community as a whole. So we want to get all of the input from the different communities, and it's very interesting because they're very the communities are very, very different around the loch actually. So even in our very small area, it is trying to make sure that we're not taking their identity away to plump them into a shortbread showdown. So I'm trying to directly answer your question, but it's quite difficult. So the community want to make sure that there's something like shortbread or like first footing is kept with us, but potentially not invite others to make their own because we're trying to showcase what we have. So it is more of a showcasing and keeping that cultural aspect with us and for people just to learn about that and learn about the businesses and the differences that there are around the loch. Does that answer your question, Ish? ish. We'll have a chat afterwards, but yeah, I think, yeah, trying to keep it within us.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question there.
I was just wondering, is there, I don't think this is the case with you, Emma, but is there a chart? I don't think shortbread is going to die out in Scotland or anywhere really. But is there a risk that sometimes you're looking at cultural heritage through the perspective of tourism and making an assessment as to whether it should be protected and promoted because it has appeal?
Is that directly to me about the shortbread? Everybody?
More to do with just or building or wisteria.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are there things that are being rejected because you think, well, actually, no, that wouldn't appeal to tourists? It's probably less to do.
Yeah, it goes a little bit into the question I first asked, like finding your local heroes and identifying them, and then, okay, you know, well, these things we can promote or these we can use, and which are maybe not as well, not as appealing, or might even harm our destination in the end. Or, yeah, how do you select it? And so, do you also maybe have good stories or good ways to promote the destination, and you have to decline them? Like, well, we're not going to do that because they're not as good. Ivar or Jesse?
I could start. Would you like to start?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
One thing that I just wanted to say really briefly about what you guys did, which I think is really good, and this will roundabout sort of answer the question as well, is when you create kind of a community-based event like this, and then people from the outside can participate, what you're doing is you're providing an opportunity, and food is an incredibly good vessel for this, but for people to interact with local people. Mm-hmm. That's actually one of the main requests that we get from agents that we work with, is they want experiences where they can actually interact with local people. And it could be just something as simple as walking through a village that might not seem like it has much appeal, but if you have someone passionate about it and they're telling stories, then I think it can work quite well. So to answer your question about things that might get rejected, yes, there are things that I don't want to say rejected, but when we help develop product with, you know, people that are local and they're very passionate and interested in doing something, you know, we kind of go through this sort of checklist to begin with. Is it supporting, you know, the local economy? Is it supporting the local environment, or is it doing no harm? And is it culturally significant, especially culturally significant to Japan? And is this live? Is this being filmed?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is.
So I'm.
It's not live. It will be.
I'm going to just keep it vague. So we have some experiences that we're trying to help develop because we have local people passionate in doing it. But it's not really something that you would say, oh, I'm going to come to Japan for X, because it's something that you could see anywhere else in the world. And we're trying to really focus on things that are unique and Japanese. But of course, if we have someone who's very interested and passionate about sharing what they're doing to other people, there is a way to tell that story, and there is a way to do it where you're still focusing on local culture. And obviously, if it's a local person who's passionate about doing this, still your one-on-one tourist or visitor interaction is still with someone local who lives in the local community. And so maybe the vessel for it isn't necessarily deep Japan heritage or wisteria weaving, but it is something that is giving you kind of a feeling of the local culture, the welcoming. And so I guess my short answer is there is, I think, a way to do it, especially if you have people who are motivated, but to maybe tweak the story or change the focus a little bit.
And Ivar?
For the case of the boat building, it is not really even the tourist package, yeah? It is just that these boats are made there. And we have sometimes like gatherings when these boat owners, the ones who have built the boat for themselves, they come together, they go for some trip together, and then some people can join. But it's not that we will replace the canoe trips with a plastic canoes, with the canoe trips with a dugout boats. It is a very small scale, so it will never be this way, like a product. Is this answer?
Yes, it does. I mean, I think, yes. I mean, I think there are things that probably locally, culturally wouldn't have. I was approached once about a local experience, which was bear hunting, and you just know that although locally it's historically significant, you know, from a tourist point of view, it's just a no-go. So, and I'm sure there is a spectrum of cultural activities which would be appealing to tourists and some which aren't. And I think almost naturally you will not support those that don't have a broad appeal in the world. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, so that's also the role of a DMO, to help an artisan or maybe a local enthusiast on certain respects, to really help them in clarifying the story and selecting the story, or how to present it without offending, obviously, because some parts of culture can be very long-running and very important to them, but maybe it's not the best way to represent your destination. So that's indeed the role of maybe Mitja, you want to add something to that?
What I can say is that when we were starting those projects, we found out that there are some artisans who might be interested to be incorporated into tourism side, but the fact was, let's say that they didn't speak English language. So a language barrier, how to do it. You can't bring entrepreneur to do while you have a workshop. Then the second thing was, if you will have somebody to interpret into your language, you have to pay it, so the price of the whole product rise. Then the third thing would be, we brought into these workshops, visitors really come to their working process. So, you know, then it's the problem at what time visitors can enter the working process, which is that time that the artisan will have time to be with you, to be with visitors. So if you don't schedule the workshops, then visitors who are coming, they don't know if the schedules are available or not. So these are really field problems which we found out. And yes, you're right, there were quite a few of them. We couldn't build the bridge. There was no way to get to each other. Even though they would be of our interest, they can't offer their work, I would say. So at the end, we choose those 5 which I represented. And one more thing is, they have to change their mind, and that's very difficult. They're working their work. So umbrella taker, the woman that repairs umbrella, she does her work. She's not somebody that tells the story, which we were listening to, storytelling. So, but luckily, through the process of education, communication, we got to the point where visitors which are coming out of the workshops are really wow. So they are very happy about the product, but it doesn't work very easy, I would say.
Yeah, that's indeed like the difficulty of making sure that matches there, both for the artisan that is proud about his culture and how he wants to tell a story, not that he some form of stage authenticity, like how we think he should present himself.
Yeah.
And then the tourist having a great experience and not like being over his head or thinking like, oh, I simply don't understand it or not what I expected. So management of expectations. Are there any other more questions in the room? Not much?
Coffee time.
No.
Could I ask one?
Yeah, sure, Jesse.
I happened to notice on one of your slides, it looked like, so you created a small sort of DMO group, and it's all volunteer.
Basically, yes, we depend on projects.
So the individual projects are funded?
Yeah, we have to write projects to get money. Otherwise, yeah, we apply for money. That's the only, and we have this member fee, which we keep really small.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not very sustainable. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because it's something we believe in. That we saw the need. There has to be a DMO. We believe in this, and money will come. Just the beginning is
For
a bit difficult.
example, I'm trying to do something to leave it there in my city to open a museum. The paperwork is very hard. What they ask for the government is very hard to take the paperwork. So we have the materials, we have everything we need for the museum, we have the place, we have rented it, but we need money to go around it. So nobody comes as volunteer. It's very difficult when I come from. Okay, I'm one volunteer, but because, let's say, we have slept our mind a little bit, like you here, I feel different here. When I hear about the projects, we apply 100 projects and we win half. It's good, but it's difficult for us. But that's why we come here and we go in the EU projects that we have changed something, I think, and in the future we will get something. And I wish that. Because from the EU we have got many projects these lately years. But before we didn't know anything about those.
There's a question. The microphone is coming your way.
Thank you. My name is Whitey. I'm from Finland. I represent Oulu, but also Destinations International, which is international organizations for DMOs. We have almost 800 DMOs. It's not actually a question, but it's just giving you a little bit courage and trust that things will happen. I've seen this happening in Finland as well. We have a lot of EU-funded DMOs. And when you go from project to project to project, you sort of lose good people on the way, right? Because you hire a person for a certain project and the next project cannot be exactly the same. You might be able to develop the destination, but you might be losing good people in the way. I think one of the most important thing is while you're doing this is look at the metrics, because when you show the value of tourism to the local people who are sitting in the municipal boards and make the decisions about funding, they need to understand what it brings to the community and how tourism can enrich the community. So if you go from project to project, they will not see the value and they will not understand how important it is to actually bring in the sort of like the base funding for everything that is so valuable in the work that you do. So if it's possible, look into the metrics, look into the systems, how you can see the value in money, mostly, what the tourism brings to the destination. And after that, when you show the value to the decision makers, then the money will come to you. And it's really wonderful to see the work that you're doing only from voluntary basis and from taking money out of these projects. Kudos to you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for the encouragement and good advice. Actually, this is kind of why I do this academic work, that I hope my PhD will prove that this is a good way and that the state has to consider how to finance that kind of things. Yeah, because it's one side is this tourism, the other is national park management. We do so much also, not only for let's say municipalities, but also for this national park. When these local people are actively involved, they also do so much more for the environment.
Thank you. Emma?
Just, I think, I guess thinking from our perspective as well, because we've also got lots of sort of path maintenance as part of one of my roles as well. So it's not just about food. But I think the key for us has been completely communication. So making sure that the local communities are buying into everything that you're doing. And actually it kind of seems to go on from there. And because we have to fund every project that we go to as well. But it is just thinking about like the people, places and profit thing and making sure that, you know, they're all on par. But we've done very well because we've got so much backing from so many communities. But again, it's always down to the communication, always.
So not only communication to to all the stakeholders basically. So know where your money is coming from, who's funding you. So when you have a project, know you can have like a great project like the shortcake or a shortbread competition. but then still you need the statistics to base it and to make it interesting enough as well for the funders or people who fund the project.
Exactly. You need people to believe in it, and if it's the people that are taking part that are believing in it, you're gonna succeed.
Yeah, and I can believe for the shortbread competition that, if I can conclude a little bit, because we're almost out of time, is that if you, and that I think for all your destinations, if you have your local community do something that they really feel passionate about, it's probably, I think for the shortbread competition, it wouldn't even matter if there wouldn't be any tourists coming in, because they had so much fun making the shortcake and and competing with each other and seeing what they have. And
exactly. Yeah.
and they're all stoked about it.
Yeah.
And the same about the artisans. You know, they love what they're doing, and when there's somebody interested in their craft, then they become ambassadors for the destination. And it's only then the role of DMOs, of local municipalities, of other people involved in that whole process, of, okay, how can we form that rough diamond, and how can we convince them, like, hey, what you're doing, actually it is amazing and the world should know about it, and you can be an ambassador not only for this art form, but for the whole destination, maybe even a country. So I want to thank you all very much for your wise words and sharing the knowledge. Give them a big hand, everybody.